Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're crafting the perfect coffee cup from scratch in Blender. Lid, cup, and all the goodies. Forget complicated fluid sims and hefty setups. We're keeping it simple and stylish. Get ready to create a paper cup that looks so real you might just want to take a sip. Let's jump in and bring that coffee cup to life. Alright, so first off, let's clear our scene. Just select everything and delete it. Boom. Clean slate. Now let me quickly enable the screencast tool for you guys so you can see exactly what I'm pressing. Got that? Cool. Okay, now every key I hit will be displayed at the bottom left corner of the screen, just like this. Press Shift A and we're adding a cylinder. Before we go further, we're going to change the vertices count to about 24 just to give it a smoother look. Next, hit Tab to enter edit mode and press 3 to switch to face select mode. We're going to select the bottom face of the cylinder and to scale it down a bit. Now press G plus Z to bring it down on the Z axis and scale it down just a tiny bit more. That's looking good. Now press I to inset the face and then press E to extrude it up a little. We're forming the bottom of our cup. Go ahead and press it again to inset and yep, one more time, then delete that face we just created in the middle. Now select the edge loop we have left, press Ctrl F and choose Grid Fill. That will close it up nice and neat. All right, back to face select mode by pressing 3 and delete that face. Now, we're gonna add a little extra structure by pressing Ctrl R to add a loop cut, dragging it down near the base. Add one more loop cut at the bottom for some extra geometry. Then press Ctrl R again, but this time scroll your mouse wheel to add more segments around the cup. When you're done, hit Tab to switch back to object mode and hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Left click and select Shade Smooth to give it that polished look. Now let's make that iconic coffee cup rim. Head back into edit mode, hold Alt, and select the edge right at the top of the cup. Press Shift D to duplicate the edge, and then right click to snap it back in place. With that edge still selected, press P-Cock and choose Separate by Selection to make it its own object. Okay, back in object mode, select the edge we just separated. Let's delete the subdivision surface modifier on that. We're now going to turn this edge into a curve. Over in the Curve Properties tab, go to the Geometry section and set the bevel depth to around 0.03. That looks good. Now let's add some subdivision to this curve as well. Press Ctrl 2 again to add a subdivision surface modifier. After that, select the curve, hold Shift, select the cup, and press Ctrl P to parent them together. Choose Object, keep Transformed Form. Now, whenever we move the cup, that curve will follow along perfectly. Now it's time to create the lid for our coffee cup. First, go ahead and select the cup, press the # key to solo the cup so we only see what we're working on. Now, select this top edge right here. Just like we did for the rim before, press Shift D to duplicate it and P to separate it into a different object. Back in object mode, select the new edge we just separated, and in the Modifiers tab, delete that subdivision surface modifier. All right, now we're gonna start shaping the lid. Press E to extrude the edge, then S shoot to scale it down a bit. Keep repeating this process, E to extrude, then Z to move it upward along the Z axis. Again, E to extrude, S to scale, and repeat until you have a nice stepped shape for the top of the lid. Now press Ctrl and choose Grid Fill to cap off the top of the lid. With that done, press Ctrl the plus sign on your numpad to grow your selection and scale it down just a little bit. Next, select the outer edge of the lid and extrude it down 2 times to form the lip that holds the lid onto the cup. To sharpen things up, select these edges here and press Ctrl B to bevel them. This will help give the lid a more defined, realistic edge. Now, for the fun part, select these 2 faces here at the top of the lid, press A to inset, then extrude them down 2 times and delete those faces to create the opening. All right, switch back to object mode and hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Now we've got a nice smooth lid, but let's clean up those edges a bit more. Head back into edit mode and add some loop cuts. One here and one here, and a few more around the lid. This will sharpen up those soft areas. Finally, hit Shade Smooth, and boom, our lid is done. Don't forget to parent it to the cup, just like we did with the rim earlier. Now press the # key to bring back our rim. Uh-oh, it looks like the rim is sitting on top of the lid, but don't worry, we can fix that quickly. Select the lid, enter edit mode, and press S, followed by Shift Z to scale it only on the X and Y axes. And there you go, problem solved. All right, it's time to create the coffee, and trust me, this is way simpler than you'd think. First, select the cup, hop into edit mode, and grab this edge right here. Just like we did for the lid, duplicate it, and then separate it by selection. Now let's delete that subdivision surface modifier that's already on it. In edit mode, press A to select everything, then hit E to extrude and scale it down a bit. Do that one more time and then use grid fill to cap the bottom. Now press Ctrl+ on your numpad to grow the selection. Next, we'll activate proportional editing. You can press O or just click the icon up here. Make sure the connected only option is checked. Now press G and Z to move the selection down and use the scroll wheel to adjust the influence. Once that looks good, go ahead and turn off proportional editing. Add a subdivision surface modifier, hit Shade Smooth, and boom, we're done creating the mesh for our coffee. Lastly, let's add some geometry to the cup by adding a Solidify modifier. Don't forget to move the Solidify modifier above the subdivision surface modifier before applying it. And there we go. All right, now we're moving into the fun part, adding materials and textures to bring this scene to life. First, let's create some space for our shader editor, and while we're at it, make a little room for the UV editor as well. Trust me, we're going to need it as we move forward. Once that's set up, let's start with the lid. Give it a dark gray base color, but wait, let's switch over to material preview mode so we can actually see what we're doing. All right, that's better. Now reduce the roughness on the lid to make it look a bit sleeker. Next up, the cup. We're going to leave the base color as white, since it's a paper cup, but increase the roughness to 1. Paper isn't shiny, so this will help it look more realistic. Now here's where we mix it up a bit. Under the material slots, add a new slot and assign a new material. Let's give that a green base color. Now with the cup selected, hop into edit mode and press the / to solo it, so we're just working on the cup. We need to assign that green color to a specific part of the cup. So Alt-click to select all the faces in a horizontal loop. Make sure your cursor is on a vertical edge to select horizontally, and the opposite if you're selecting vertically. This little trick helps a lot. Once you've got the faces selected, head back to the material slots, make sure the green material is highlighted, and click Assign to apply it. Oh, and we can add some loop cuts to prevent the material from stretching in weird ways. All right, that's done. Let's hide the lid for now by pressing S. We'll come back to it later. Now for the rim, just like the cup, set the roughness to 1 so it matches that matte paper-like texture. Finally, for the coffee, give it a deep, dark brown color and drop the roughness down to shh. We want that coffee surface to look smooth and reflective, like it's fresh and ready to drink. And there you have it. Our base textures are in place, setting the stage for the next steps. All right, let's start applying the image textures smoothly. With the cup selected, make sure you've got the green material chosen in the material slot. Now, click on the principled BSDF node and hit Ctrl-T to add an image texture. If that shortcut doesn't work for you, it might mean you need to enable the Node Wrangler add-on. To do that, go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, then search for Node Wrangler and tick the checkbox to enable it. Next, click Open and load your image texture. I'll be sharing the textures in the description so you can download them if you want to follow along exactly. Once the label is added, you'll notice it doesn't fit perfectly yet. That's where we need to fix the UVs with some unwrapping. With the cup selected, press Tab to enter Edit mode. Under the shader editor, while the green material is still active, click the Select button. This selects all the faces that have the green material applied, which is where our label will go. Now we need to mark a seam. Select an edge along the side of the cup, hold Ctrl, and as you click along, it will select the path between your first and current edge. Keep going until the whole edge is selected. Once it's done, press U and choose Mark Seam. Now select all the faces again by clicking Select under the material slots and press U and choose Unwrap. Your UVs are now laid out. In the UV editor, we're going to make sure everything aligns. Press 2 to enter Edge Select mode, then select one vertical edge, press then Y, and hit 0 to straighten it on the Y-axis. Do the same with the opposite edge. For the horizontal edges, select an edge, press S, then X, and hit 0 to align it on the X-axis. Alright, now press 3 to enter face select mode and select this face here. You'll notice it's perfectly aligned. With that face still selected, press L to grab all the connected faces. Next, hit F3, type follow active quads, and select it. This will perfectly align all the faces in the UV layout. Now move the UV island and press R to rotate it until your label is aligned correctly on the cup. You can also press SAW to scale it to your liking. Looking good. But we have this small issue here. If you notice the texture repeating, head over to the shader editor. In the image texture node, change repeat to extend to solve that. Problem fixed. Now hit backslash to bring back the rim and coffee. Let's texture the coffee next. Select the coffee and in the shader editor, make sure the principled BSDF that node is selected. Press Ctrl-Ta to add an image texture node. Click Open and find your coffee texture. As I mentioned, all the textures are linked in the description, so grab those and follow along. Now let's select the coffee. In edit mode, press A to select everything, then hit U and choose Unwrap. Head over to the UV editor, select everything, and adjust it until the texture fits perfectly. Alright, the coffee looks a bit flat, so let's fix that by adding a color ramp node. Connect the image output of the texture node into the factor input of the color ramp. Now press Ctrl-Shift and click on the color ramp node to preview it. Adjust the sliders so the darker parts represent shinier areas, while lighter parts are less shiny. Next, press Ctrl-Shift and click back on the principled BSDF, then connect the color ramp to the roughness input of the principled BSDF. Lastly, let's add a bump node. Connect the color ramp to the height input of the bump node, and then connect the bump node to the normal input of the principled BSDF. The coffee might look more like soup at first, so reduce the strength of the bump node until it looks just right. Press Alt-H to unhide the lid. Now, let's add a plane to act as the surface. Scale it up a bit, and then select the coffee cup and scale it down. Oh, I forgot to parent the coffee to the cup. Let me do that real quick. Okay, now scale down the coffee cup and position it above the plane. To ensure the cup sits perfectly, turn on the snapping tool and set it to snap to face. Select the cup, press G, and make sure your mouse cursor is on the surface of the plane as you position it. Don't forget to turn off snapping once you're done. Lastly, select the plane again and scale it up a bit more for good measure. Now it's time to set up our camera. First, add a camera to your scene and press Ctrl-Alt-Numpad 0 to align it to your view. Press N to open the side menu, go to the View tab, and check Lock Camera to View. This will allow you to adjust the camera position as you work. Next, position the camera to frame your scene well. Select the plane and enter Edit mode. Select the edges you want to work with and extrude them upward a bit. Then select these edges and press Ctrl-B to bevel them. Now, shade smooth to give the plane a polished look. It's time to duplicate and arrange the cups. Select the cup and, in the outliner, right-click on the selected object and choose Select Hierarchy. This will select all objects parented to the cup. Press Shift-D to duplicate the objects and position them as you like. I'm going to make 3 duplicates, rotate the one in front, and delete the lid from one of them. If the coffee looks frozen, delete that too, so you have just an empty cup on the floor. Press A to select everything. Then press Ctrl-A and choose Apply Scale to ensure everything is properly scaled. Select the lid and clear its parent so you can move it around separately. Set the origin back to the geometry and place the lid on the floor. Adjust the camera slightly and move things around until you're satisfied with the composition. Finally, select the plane and give it a nice base color to complete your scene. Now it's time to set up our scene for rendering. Switch to the rendered view to see how your scene looks in real time. Let's start by adding an environment texture. Locate the HDRI you have saved. I'll be using Blender's default forest HDRI for this tutorial. Next, switch the rendering engine to Cycles and set the rendering device to GPU if you have one for faster rendering. In the shader editor, change from Object to Environment. To get better lighting angles, we'll rotate the HDRI. Select the Environment Texture node and press Ctrl-T to add a Mapping node. Adjust the Z rotation until the lighting looks just right. Now, adjust the rendering samples to your preference and render out your image. After the first render, I felt the image was a bit too raw, so I added a sunlight to the scene and adjusted its position. I set the intensity to around 2 to get some nice shadows and improved lighting effects. Here's a comparison of the image with the sunlight on and off. I also increased the roughness of the lid a bit and reduced the roughness of the plane to enhance the reflections. After making these adjustments, I rendered the scene again and noticed a significant improvement. And there you have it, your very own coffee cup, fresh out of Blender's oven. I hope you had as much fun creating it as I did. If this helped level up your Blender skills, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more awesome tutorials, and ring that bell so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep blending.